And hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing, live show number 155. We'll be actually celebrating our 3-year anniversary next week. But before then, we have the privilege of having Mr. Brian Wise with Infor, who is a guest experience account executive. I always wanted to get the detail of what guest experience in an encapsulated ecosystem would be like. So I guess I'd ask that a little bit later. But Brian, thank you so much. I know you've been hectic with the scheduling, and we've been dying to get you onto the show. Eric Dorr first recommended that you should join us because of what you do. This is Mr. Edward St. Ange from Flip2. Hi, Ed.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So we said, hey, fantastic, you can make it for us. We finally were able to coordinate a time, and thank you for being here. So welcome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, Brian, thanks for joining.
You gave me a little video that you thought was either a queue up or something you wanted to refer to. You want me to?
So yeah, I'll let you know when to queue that up. So I can go into some background. So I've been with Infor for going on close to 3 years. Before this, I was at Oracle. I worked on the Oracle Marketing Cloud. So I've been in enterprise marketing, CRM, big data, that whole area for probably the past 6+ years. Oracle, I was working with manufacturers. So I was driving to Michigan City, Indiana, like rural places, telling them how to basically draw up leads for widgets, for power plants, for all of that. So when we joined, what's unique about Infor, and if you're not familiar with Infor, is it's third largest business application company, but it's built specifically for industry. So in my space, the marketing space, in the level of granularity and personalization you need to get down to, you have to be industry focused in order to be successful. It's not a horizontal approach anymore with marketing. So when I came over here, I was covering manufacturing again, and because we have a real strong manufacturing space, but the opportunity to move over to hospitality opened up. So work with 20,000 hotels, casinos, restaurants, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I mean, it's got to be so much easier than selling to some guy in Michigan City, Indiana that doesn't really know marketing. And I was in for an awakening that, I mean, the hospitality industry is largely behind when it comes to marketing and personalization. And I was...
No way, come on.
To the point, it was,
they use first name and last name in some of their email that they sent.
Yeah. So
isn't that personalization?
Yeah, dynamic. Sometimes your name's lowercase. So, and I was for the first.
Hey, Robert, unmute yourself. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
I was pantomiming. So
yes.
And I went to, so we had our HMS users conference back last December, and I was having some luck with him, but a lot of education. Like, how don't you get this? It's all about the consumer, the guest experience. And I was asked to put together, we have a real-time recommendation engine that I built an upsell widget to go within the platform and basically make it a frictionless experience. It goes right within the check-in, worked with development to get that built out. So I'm sitting in the keynote, and I had spent a lot of time putting it together. The presentation, 75-minute workshop was the next day. And Michael Schubach, who I look up to all the time within hospitality, super smart guy, started talking about millennials, and put the video that I sent over to you if you want to cue that up.
Okay. Let me go over and turn that. Let's see. I think if I hit play video.
Ding, 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 ding. There he sits inside your local coffee shop, sporting a man bun and facial hair. Somehow he believes, although he has no job, that by his 30s he will be a millionaire. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A. Gotta love millennials. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A. Gotta love millennials. She posts lots of selfies on her Instagram with the quote that's inspirational. Hopes to change the world while wearing her hands armed with her dreams and knowledge of essential oils. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A. Gotta love millennials. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A.
Hey, we'll go back to it. There we go.
It was early. I had been traveling. I wasn't really too paying attention. I was listening to it, but then I started seeing the reactions of all the hospitality people, and then heard the conversations after. And I mean, it's evident that the millennial thing is just people don't want to deal with it, and they think it's going to go away, or they don't know how to deal with it. So I went back and I didn't go out that night. I had to reshift my entire presentation because no one was going to get what I was thinking when I put together this upsell component for the check-in. I was selfish, right? I'm like, well, if they have a ton of HMS property management customers, I might as well make the experience good for myself. I don't want to give you my phone number. I don't care about a free cookie. I want to be able to check in quickly, and then you can upsell and cross-sell me and be totally frictionless. So I had to go back, and now I've been on this little, I never used to really identify with millennials. I used to kind of stay away from it, but now I've been on this entire manifesto explaining the opportunity with millennials. And honestly, I mean, when you look at anything, I think, and I would love to hear your opinion too, but everything is pretty much related to millennials. Like Airbnb, it became a frictionless experience. The rise of luxury hotels and boutiques, cruise lines going down. I mean, one of the reasons cruise lines is going down is because they charge you not to go solo. People like to go on cruises single, so they fixed that. I mean, when you look at everything in terms of an engagement level and in terms of the struggles with loyalty, it's all directly related to millennials, and we don't want to deal with people. That's why Starbucks app's so good, because I never want to talk to them when I go and get my coffee. People don't want to talk to people at all. They just want to be frictionless, whether it's on the web, whether it's on OTA,
here's the thing where that's misapplied in this industry, and actually an industry as a whole, is it starts with the millennials, but it's not because of when they were born or anything specific about a grouping of people born. It's they came up when technology actually started really improving the way we do things, and they were the earliest ones on it. And it's going to spread. I mean, because here's the thing: so I'm not a millennial. I'm a zennial. I'm in between X and millennial. We now have a marker because we identify with both. You're muted, Tim. The baby boomer in you is probably having a hard time with that button.
First of all, I'm not.
So
I'm
what Ed's trying to say here
is you're a cusper, right?
It is generation fluid. That's just.
I identify across multiple generations.
No, but one of the things that I tell people all the time is, and I stole this from somebody, and if I apologize, I'm not giving credit, not because I don't want to, but because I don't remember who. But it's we got to stop talking about millennials as millennials and start talking about them as what they are, which is adults under 40.
Yeah.
Right. If you go by Pew's definition, the oldest were born in 1981 and the youngest were born in 1996, which means we're talking about people who are now 22 to 37 years old. These are adults.
Yeah.
And to your point, well, right, but they're young, maturing adults, right?
Right.
I mean, the ones who are 37 are adults. Some of their behaviors are different.
Right.
Some of their behaviors are different. But Ed's exactly right. They grew up in a world where this stuff is normal, right? Robert is not, Robert doesn't think that, electric lights are, technology, because they always existed.
The wheel, that when that came out, that was
the wheel was new for Robert. Electric lights existed when he was born.
I'll give you a perfect example. Back when my wife and I met, we met online, and it was super taboo to tell people that you met online. Nowadays, that's how it happens.
That's correct.
And actually, most of our friends that are married couples, you talk to them, and they're like, "Yeah, we met online too." So things have changed because technology has taken lots of different aspects of the human condition and removed a lot of friction from it and has recreated how it happens. So here's the thing, talk to anyone who is a baby boomer who is dating, and guess what they're doing? They're doing all the same thing that 20-somethings are doing in dating. They're using all the same tech. So that's going to flow to them. And you're going to start seeing things that were previously identified as a millennial thing start popping up in all ages. And it's because Facebook. Here's the thing. They're good ideas. They're good ideas that improve life.
No, here's the thing. I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right, Ed. But I say for years. Actually, it's funny. My podcast this morning that I recorded hasn't gone out yet. Is on this topic about we need to stop thinking about millennials this way and the like. Technology is hereditary. We get it from our kids, right? Yeah. Because somebody had a great line. I saw at a conference a few years back, and he said, if you talked to the average person alive 100 years ago, this is like 2015, right? So it was 2 or 3 years ago. But they would have said that they were Victorians, except for the fact that Queen Victoria had died in 1899. The woman had been dead for 15 years, but most adults still lived their life as though it was 15 years ago, right? Yeah. Millennials live their life the way the world is currently, and the rest of us are still catching up.
Yeah. Yeah, and 20 years from now, they'll be looking at 15 years old.
Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
So when we talk about the technology piece, I think the biggest thing is obviously social media, and the reason I think that is because it changed the way that we gratify ourselves, and it gave us basically a canvas to go out and I mean, if you don't go away on Instagram about it, did you really go away? Like now I'm taking photos of my wife taking photos, so it does look natural. I mean, it's all about building our personal brand. We'd rather go to a luxury hotel and take a picture with their famous coconut drink than get a free upgrade in a room or something. It's all about that never ending dopamine rush by getting likes, by getting follows, by getting people on Instagram, and you want to be seen as one of those trendsetters or those influencers. And I think that's really what you're seeing. People are traveling more, they're going to cities more. That's why, like the Airbnb, it's huge because they're 82% up in like cities travel since like 2014, but people are going because they want to take pictures around the city. They're not staying in their room or on property. So I think it's the opportunity that presents itself for us to be able to capture, take photos, and then feed that funnel of building our self-esteem on Instagram is what drives the behavior.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Well, yeah, it's just, but it says, but the technology, yeah, having gone through a variety of technologies. I mean, back in the 60s, you had slides, right? And that was like a big thing. Slides. You had these slide projectors. What are slides?
The carousel.
Robert, have you put that in on the presentation that I do that, where I actually talk about the fact that this behavior has always existed? What used to be very painful, like if you think about how those people who would go on summer vacation and then would invite their neighborhood over to see
the slide. Oh my God.
Actually, you know what's funny about this?
Or there was Super 8. It was Super 8 film too for movies, right?
Right.
So film that, and you had to send it away and wait for it to come back.
The difference of what has happened is now it's an active share with a passive consumption, which actually makes the whole situation much more pleasurable for everyone involved, except for. The new thing is you feel the pressure that you have to comment or like on the person's post. Otherwise, you're not a good friend for not showing them that you looked at what they put up for their album, for their latest trip. So, I mean, but this human behavior of traveling, capturing it, and then sharing it to an audience has always existed. It's just a lot easier to do, and it's a lot less painful because you can quickly choose to flip through quickly and not listen to every story that you know, versus the old way where you had to listen to the person tell you the most mundane detail of the picture that they're sharing on the projector right now.
Right.
Well, and
I also want to point
got
out something really important about what Ed said for one moment, because this is really key to folks who are listening, right? There is a reality that today, I'm going by Pew's research on this, but I think their research on this is fairly solid. Next year, millennials will outnumber baby boomers, right? So next year, there are more millennials than there are baby boomers. And again, we're talking people who will be next year 23 to 38, right? So these are adults. Boomers still will have much more purchasing power. But the key to what Ed said is that boomers and Gen X are adopting behaviors that they're learning from millennials, because millennials are living in the world as it is, right? They're the ones who've taken this technology for granted. They're the ones who got everybody started on social. They're the ones who got everybody started with selfies, etc. They're the ones. I never texted anybody till my kids, who are, either young millennials or old, whatever the generation that follows the millennials will be called, right? Post-millennials.
It's probably painful for your kids. When my father texts me, it's painful.
No, we text all the time. I mean, it's great. Hey, man, I'm not that old. Remember,
he may look that old, but he is actually not that old.
Nobody gives a crap about Gen X. There just aren't enough of us.
People see the vacation photos of Tim and Pammy. Tim.
Nobody's supposed to see the pictures of
Tim and Tammy,
by the way.
and they think to themselves how great it is that Tim found a much younger wife.
That's exactly right. That is exactly
Tammy's just aged better than Tim has.
That's exactly right. But the behaviors are being adopted by boomers and Gen X, regardless of where the purchasing power is. The behaviors are what predicts what people are going to do, and that's the important part.
And this is the important message to get when you are presenting the millennial problem to people. It's a millennial problem today. It's a consumer problem soon, just in general, because it's coming, and it's coming quick. Like, our data is already showing that a lot of the behavior that people identified as millennial behavior is far wider reaching.
Completely mainstream. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's everything. I went through generations of just listening to music, right? When I started out, it was 33 RPM records, right, which were nice and large, and then they wound up going to you had some 45s too for singles. Then you got cassette tapes where you could play that and record it and share it and make your own mixtape. That was revolutionary, right? In high school, that was. Then you got CDs. Right, you go, oh my God, and then you could burn your own CDs, right? You didn't have to go fast forward the tape and things like that, and now it's all digital. So all those change.
Robert, why did you skip the wax wheel? I mean, you were back on the wax wheel. You started with the wax wheel.
Well, wax.
We got to let Brian.
Wax.
But
cylinder.
With that was always the kind of the 20-ish, right? Give or take 5 years, the 20 to 20, maybe 18 to 27 range who did all that. And I went through skiing, right? You had all this advanced freestyle skiing being born, snowboarding being born. Always the same group of early adopters. It's kind of those college age kids who go. That's how golf was created. It was created by college kids at the University in St Andrews, Scotland, right?
And
they're
no
the
one
ones who started
has picked it up since, and that's the problem golf's having.
Exactly.
Can we let Brian talk?
Sorry,
I was about to warn Brian. It's like, Brian,
you gotta jump in.
Yeah,
just gotta roll up.
I don't have patience being a millennial.
Yeah, exactly. Jump in.
No, this is all good, and I'm taking my millennial hat off and I'm going to conversate rather than just talk over people.
No, you have to talk over.
I think the most surprising thing to me with the whole millennial thing and how people did not see it coming is, I mean, it's been there for the last 10 years. The music festival industry is the ideal example of where the next generations, these are the people going to Vegas now, right? Vegas gambling's down an hour and a half, right? And people are banking on, do we appeal to millennials? Millennials showing up in record numbers, but they're doing so for the clubs, the pool parties, they're building zip lines.
Absolutely.
They're doing stuff that is creating moments where people can cheer about it. Vegas it's going to be all resorts. It's going to be huge over the next few years, 10 years, 15 years. And it's all these people that used to travel. I mean, Ultra in Miami, when people used to tell me they can't market to millennials, Ultra in Miami gets like 750,000 shares on social media. It's like 79 million people watching on video, and there's 180,000 people that show up, and it generates 80 million a weekend for the city of Miami. I've gone to Ultra 4 times. I've never stepped inside a concert. I mean, it's just go for the experience, and people there. I think it's been a huge opportunity. Have you all seen those wings in Nashville? People take photos of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big thing that actually a lot of destinations are starting to try to think about how to create.
Oh, right.
Yeah, some sort of
Instagrammable moment.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So in Nashville, there are these wings painted all over the place.
That woman, she started. I was reading. Yeah. So, and it's I forget the name of the I just wrote about it too. The name of the campaign, but this woman wrote it. And there's people that line up 80 people long to take photos of it. So I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and there's a new restaurant that opened early summer. And so we went. It wasn't that crowded. It was a huge line to get upstairs. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess we'll wait in line. The line was to take a photo with those wings. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I just waited for 2 hours to take a photo with wings. But it's being able to take that, set up that moment that now you can share it, and you're creating something where now I can build my personal brand. It's not about the hotel brand. It's about being able, what's my brand, and that's how you have to market to them. I mean, you have to set up, you have to empower them to be able to create their own canvas or their own picture and try to be. Most of the time they're not. Most of the time we're not. But you have to just give it to them a little bit and just recognize them and give that whole. I mean, the whole thing with OTAs, the Airbnb, it's people don't want to deal with people. So however we figured out that you got to create a frictionless experience on web. It's not about cheap options. It's about the web experience. Web booking experience is worse than going on an OTA. Airbnb. It's not. People would rather pay more if experience, and we've always said, cheaper options. We don't have the marketing power. I don't agree. I think I would pay more to deal with the site and then have to go on one of the hot wires, any of them.
Mm-hmm. So Brian, I appreciate you coming on to talk about Flip 2.
I'm open for discussion. I don't have to.
No. My theory is they want it to be frictionless. That's what they expect, because everything else technologically has basically been geared toward reducing friction. My argument, though, is if they want the friction removed when that friction benefits the business, right? You go to the front desk because you have to give them the credit card so they can make sure they charge you and all that stuff. But if you need help and information or something like that, I think a lot of people would like, now not always, if they can get it on their phone, that's okay. But if they can talk to somebody really quickly who really has some interesting insight and can give you great stuff, that's great. I just came back from the Milestone conference in San Jose, which was great. And Chip Conley spoke, and he talked about his book Peak, which is now quite old. But his whole thing was the moments that are basically he based all this stuff on Maslow's needs hierarchy, right? Mm-hmm. But his thing was, you have your expectations, right? And that is just table stakes. Meeting people's expectations does nothing. And he's specifically geared toward millennials, but actually all travelers. Then you have their desires. If you can achieve some of their desires, wow, that's good. But then you have the top, which is kind of the equal to the self-actualization of exceeding what they even imagined, right? They didn't even think of it. Right. And if you can do that, that's where the magic happens. Right. And so that's where he was kind of arguing that's not necessarily an AI thing right now. That's a human thing where you really can wind up going, hey, you should try this. You didn't think of it. You're going to be glad about it. And millennials love that. I mean, but
here's the interesting thing on that. It doesn't take grand gestures to get into that zone.
Right.
We use that psychology a ton in our experiences. So when we look at designing any ask of anyone, that we create into the platform, anything we're going to ask a traveler to do, we try to have, we call it the magic. We try to have something that you're going to do it just because it feels magic. And some of it is really nuanced little stuff. So like, for example, if you share a travel story with one of the hotels using our platform and you're accepted into their story contest, the email that tells you you were accepted is a beautiful email where the entire background image is your story that you submitted. Yep. Like, and that feels magical to people. Yeah. And because of that, that email is like the highest engaging email I've ever seen in any system statistic, because it looks like you spent a lot of time on it. Like, people who don't know are like, wow, this is really impressive. And not, you know, and it's the same thing. Like when we interact with friends of yours that looked at your story and showed it some love, in the email that goes back to that friend, it says, we loved having Brian as a guest, and you know, really loved this memory that he shared with us. Here's that offer you asked for, you know, below, but also check out some cool stuff other people did while Brian was here. And tying all of that in is part of that exceeding what would be imagined, because when has a business ever sent you an email where it nods at some pretty interesting, valuable things it knows about you?
Right.
And is holding the context of the relationship.
So, Brian, what can hotels be doing different, you know, from your perspective? Obviously, you know, having that Instagrammable moment is one thing, but what are some of the other things they can be doing different?
Do any
Hey, Brian, you froze there.
So, and this is what Ed was just saying too, and this will get into your question. Any of you guys fish?
Yeah.
Yeah. Holly says no.
Hey, Brian, I think we're having some technical issues on.
Have any of you guys fish, or do you go to? You ever gone to a Bass Pro Shop?
Bass Pro Shops, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think we lost. Oh no, we lost Tim.
We lost Tim, but
nope, we went down to non-video. Holly, I'm going to leave it to you. Yep, you're coming through on audio good now. I'm going to Holly, I'll leave you to keep Brian engaged.
I'm coming on.
Talk to you guys a bit.
I'll make sure they don't talk over him the whole show.
Thank you.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah, I know. Brian, are you back with us?
I don't know. Am I?
We can hear you.
I can hear you. Your camera's up. There you go.
So to Ed's point, and what I was thinking of too is, so the Bass Pro Shops, right? So they are a case study in user-generated content, and what they used to do, and they had it on their website, is you would go to your local Bass Pro Shop in Minnesota or wherever it is, and you would purchase a lure, and then you go fishing. Now, they would have a contest where if you caught a bass, you would upload the photo, and then people would ask what lure you bought, what were you using to cast, and it generated so much return for them because it was real. People were really catching the fish, and I think there's a huge opportunity to do something similar. I don't think it's all about technology either. I think obviously I sell technology, so I want to say it's a big deal, but I mean, travel agents are ahead of Airbnb for millennials in terms of booking preferences. And it's because we don't want to deal with stuff. We want it as frictionless as possible. My wife killed me, but I just bought new suits and I spent more money on them. I never went on a website or anything, but some guy, my buddy came to my house. He's a tailor, and they were custom suits. I never went online, never got an email, no nothing. And I spent money. It's really just about how do we, and if it's through technology, how do we empower people to have the easiest possible road to booking something, and then how do we make it as frictionless as possible? And a lot of that has to deal with personalization, has to deal with, we don't want to get irrelevant content. You should not have to I fight with Comcast all the time. It was like I went to, I'm on my TV, and then it was during a Patriots playoff game, so I was a little bit more on nerves. So, but then I went on to chat, and they didn't know who I was, and I'm like, how does the experience not go channel to channel, that is probably the worst experience someone could have, is if you have to keep repeating yourself as you go.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why a lot of people shy away from the phones now too, and don't call in, because you're always thinking you have to give more information, but you have to do this, and we just want it done. I mean, we want you to know what you know and just book it. It's and I think from a hotel standpoint, it really is about the personalization piece. I mean, it is.
Well, but understand why it's about the personalization piece. It's actually because leading up to this point, anyone who's come up in marketing in the last 20 years, let's say, you really didn't have to be all that thoughtful, because there was just massive growth in your ability to reach people. So you could be sloppy and super successful. The challenge is these pesky companies like Apple have come out and kind of set a standard for thoughtfulness and design, and people have really grabbed onto that. Now you have just many successful companies. Google's thoughtfulness on the search bar, if you remember that, that was revolutionary, that just having a page with just a search bar on it. Holy smokes, who would have thought a search engine would, think about that? The idea is thoughtfulness. It's not just about personalization. It's about being thoughtful of, how can you add benefit? The problem is for the longest time, especially in the hotel space, there has been a complete lack of thoughtfulness in the digital world, and hotels still struggle with the idea that the guest journey and the guest experience starts way before they actually show up to your doors. And part of the reason they haven't been thoughtful on that is most hotels for the longest time farmed it out to agencies, farmed it out to be other people's problems, and really weren't paying attention to what was being done, because that was someone else's problem. I'm going to do hospitality, and hospitality is here, but hospitality is in every touch that you have with a guest is an opportunity for hospitality. So, and that's also some big differences in even like the agencies that you can work with at a hotel. That's why certain agencies get much better results. It's not because they have some secret black box. Like if you go look at so Stuart from Fuel Travel is a person who's on here a lot. If you go look at any of their clients and you go through the guest journey, you'll see why their clients do better with them than they did with their previous agency. And it's not because Fuel has tapped into some secret magic thing. It's because the people at Fuel are incredibly thoughtful and take the time to make sure that anything they do for their clients has that thoughtfulness in it, and instantly you turn something on that's thoughtful versus the way it was being done before, and you get results. The challenge that marketers have now is growth is slowing. Any of you look at Facebook earnings this week? Yeah. Growth is slowing in all these emerging channels, which means marketers need to be the ones that are most concerned about that, because with the slowing of growth means you need to be better. And now the governments are stepping in. GDPR is more about getting rid of the sloppy garbage marketing than it is about anything else. So it had to get this bad for marketers to start waking up. But here's the thing. It's not hard. It's just be thoughtful.
To that point, what industry does this better than anyone is financial services, and they've been doing it for 20 years because they lost the trust of all their consumers after the stock market crash and after the housing crisis. They had to become thoughtful, and they had to do so through personalization. And the ones that did it better than anyone, the American Expresses, like the Navy Federals, all of those that came out of that, what they did is they focused squarely on being thoughtful, understanding their consumers at every touch point, and the people that came out of that were forced to grow up a lot sooner than others, and they do it better than anyone. They figured that out 20 years ago.
Yep. They're also, it's funny, financial services were also the first ones to really tap into storytelling in marketing.
Right. Yeah.
If you really think about it, Holly, I see you're rolling your eyes, but you actually have to think about the shifts that happened.
I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Think about most insurance companies, most financial institutions, and their marketing for, probably the last 15, 20 years has all been retelling of stories that they see their clients go through constantly. Your kid's going to college and you're concerned because they're picking the most expensive school. Don't worry, we got you covered.
House.
Yeah, you bought your first house and now you're doing this. You're worried. You just had a kid and you're trying to think about what you need to do for college savings. They've been storytelling way before most other industries. And just the fact that I could, as I was telling you the examples, I could picture which commercials I saw, and that's why storytelling's strong. They have been really progressive in marketing, and you're right. It's because they had to. It's because, we screwed you all. All right, we got to fix that.
Yeah, it was,
absolutely.
just having a full understanding, even with that storytelling, you know if someone has a kid, or if someone just had a new baby, and you can bring that in from social listening or from some technology where now you're provided with a recommendation or some type of prescriptive messaging where now you can start marketing to them for a college savings fund. And it's not creepy. You're just understanding. People go in the bank all the time. And they don't know what they tell you. You just say, oh, you interested in the college savings fund. It's just about really kind of that householding and understanding each step of their journey. And there's so many opportunities. That's the banks that are doing amazing right now, is the ones that are doing that.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and actually, Ed, the thoughtfulness thing, I think Connolly made a great example. And Chip Connolly is the guy who I think is really, truly responsible for Airbnb's success.
Oh, yeah.
Because when they started out, they had some really smart design-oriented guys from Rhode Island School Design, very tech-savvy. They were a tech company. And Chip turned them into a hospitality company. But the way he did it is a great story. He said that, he talked to Brian Chesky when he first met him. He said, and he did this old Peter Drucker thing. Peter Drucker is a great old management consulting guru from the 60s. Really valuable stuff. He basically says, describe what your business does in no more than 2 words. And you have to do it 5 times. Like, what makes you different, not just I'm in a category, I'm in garbage collection or something like that. What makes you different? So they started off, and the first time they said home sharing, and Chip was just like, nope, you don't get it, that's not it. They finally figured out their 2 words were belonging anywhere, and that's what they do, right? That is Airbnb's business. You can go anywhere and belong, right? And that does make them radically different than whatever the term is for Marriott or Hilton or God knows whoever else, right?
Sell franchises.
I think to that point too is
build rooms.
Going back to the storytelling, I think what Airbnb does, it's not so much about Airbnb telling the story. It's about creating the opportunity for us to tell our own stories.
Oh,
Airbnb,
absolutely.
I saw a study. They have 1,400 castles listed on Airbnb. I've never even thought of staying at a castle, nor did I know you could stay at a castle. But hey, I might go stay at a castle because now that's something that I can experience or I can tell a story about. And that's what they do a really good job of, is giving you the opportunity to inventory anywhere in the world, to just continue to tell a story and be an influencer and get that recognition online and social media.
Yep. Their big task, which is so much harder than what hotels do, is to match a host to a guest, right? That, because the given is everything's different. There's no standardization. It's not just, oh yeah, here's a W hotel and I know exactly what it is because they're all kind of the same, or a Ritz-Carlton and it has blue water glasses or something like that. That's not it. It's the antithesis of that. And how do you provide really truly great hospitality that's not the most expensive or the most lavish or the most casual or the most, it's like, what's fitting that guest? What do they want? Let them do that in the right, the right surroundings.
Well, and I think too, they can do that through a community model too. The
absolutely.
first time someone goes to a hotel, the first thing they do is people aren't researching before they go. They go there and they're going online to look for things to do around the hotel. I mean, if you have a community model with how many people they have on that platform for restaurants, for places to go around there, I mean, you're pretty much creating a self-service host just through that community model. You don't need someone there to tell you what to do. I would rather go on and do my own research quickly and then be able to go somewhere knowing that it got 5 stars or it got 4 stars. I mean, the reputation is huge.
Yeah, or the community model, it upvotes things by, like Reddit style, that sort of thing, where you can go, hey, here's someone who really is kind of a trusted one, instead of who knows, right? You can get communities, and again, with a lot of noise in it, where all of a sudden you have businesses and sock puppets going and promoting crap, right? Just to, pollute the community.
So, I think that's huge, too. I mean, that Nextdoor app, which you can buy, like, aftermarket furniture or something. I remember I was selling something, then my wife didn't want to sell it anymore. I'm like, oh, we're selling it because I'm not getting downvoted on this, because then people aren't going to want to buy any furniture. And we moved so many times that I wanted to keep my upvote on there. But it's true. People look at that. Uber score, everything. Bet.
Oh, hey, and for Airbnb, that was the real secret, because especially a superhost, they will do, and some of them are doing underhanded things, but they are doing anything to keep their status and to make sure these guys are happy. They give them positive ratings because they can make more money. They can get a higher ADR because they're a better experience and they deserve it. So, yep, no, it's a great model. And I think the whole thing is the hotel industry needs to really get the picture that the guest is the canvas, right? And they're the artist, they're creating the picture, the hotel's the frame, right? And that's what they need to do to make sure that they can achieve what they want to do, and then they can share it or do whatever. They can be completely off the grid and not sharing it, because that's certainly now a valuable vacation experience, or they can share it, they can, live stream every second. It's whatever they want to do, right?
Yep.
Or create a place the locals want to go to. Go ahead.
What is so what is Infor doing in these areas? I missed your very opening part.
So I was given my whole kind of thing, just how I got over here in terms of marketing. I thought hospitality was going to be much easier than selling marketing to manufacturing, and I was like, what is going on here? I'm going to go back to selling widgets. So Infor, though, Infor's whole mantra is built by industry, retail, healthcare, manufacturing. The core systems, the ERP, we are having so much success with our property management system. But now, how do we take that one step further? So we are going to end-to-end guest experience with the personalization, the marketing, the engagement. So how do I take someone that's using our property management system, and then how do I surround that entire core system with ways that a brand is going to be able to engage with their guests, their end guest or their consumer, and not do so in a transactional way or an irrelevant way or a way that isn't personalized. And I'm mostly focused on the personalization piece. I still think it's a word that there's a lot of skepticism when it comes to AI, when it comes to personalization. It's not going away. I mean, personalization is everything, and it's being able to even just walk someone down a road. You don't have to be creepy. I won't shop for my wife online anymore because I get followed everywhere with boots and shoes and stuff. But it's ways to nurture someone throughout the whole journey that isn't creepy, but you are top of mind. When millennials are 12% more likely to make an impulse decision, but they're not engaged, you always have to be top of mind, even if it's little things. And I think that's most important, because we're not easy to deal with. We're not opening all our emails. We're not looking at things. We're kind of fly by the seat of our pants when it comes to booking or going on a trip or anything like that. It's usually something that just comes up, a couple drinks on a Friday night, and then you're going to Vegas on Saturday. It's like that's kind of what happens with. I mean, that has happened, but you have to always be top of mind with your brand, and you have to be. I was saying too, your brand you have to create something that locals want to go to. So like people will travel to LA to go to a hotel that they believe that celebrities or locals are going to be on the rooftop pool or at the rooftop bar. And now that's the experience for me. I might see a celebrity if I go out there. If your place isn't cool to go at a local level, it's not going to generate anyone.
Right.
So it's all about creating those different streams, not just the rooms, the restaurant, the pool, the rooftop bar that the locals want to go to. That's the hot spot. So now you want to go stay there.
Yeah. Yeah, and so many hotels, again, have divested of all their food and beverage operations. It's all outsourced. They've gone and they've lost that connection to really be able to have that be an inherent part of the property, as opposed to just leasing the space out and, you know, hoping that those guys are going to do a good job and be able to drive some stuff through. But it's, yeah, it's just.
Well, I mean, I kind of feel like it's going to go the model of like the explosion of marketing technology software like 10 years ago, where it just kept coming out. Then the big brands would scoop them up once they hit like the 40 million valuation rate. All the acquisitions are like lifestyle and luxury hotels to give that option to their guests. And I think you're going to see all of these brands pop up from 10 properties to 40 properties to 50 properties. And just keep getting scooped up, and it's going to be, I feel like that's what we're going to see now, not marketing software, but it's going to be like an explosion of all of these new brands, new luxury brands that just keep getting scooped up by the larger ones, but you're giving a different option to your guests, and that's why it's growing so quickly. Everyone.
Well, and look at the restaurant. Look at the restaurant industry. The restaurant industry, you go. Everybody's building these pseudo downtowns, right? Where it's, you know, it's mixed use. There might be some residential entertainment districts. Yeah. And what's in there? Oh, it's got a Yard House. It's got a Gloria's. It's got, you know, all of a sudden it's got an Alamo Draft House, you know, whatever the case may be. And you're going now sitting going, wait a second, this is pretty much the same. You know, it's almost like the shopping mall problem, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, shopping malls are dying because they're all the same stores in every city, and it's like, this is just stupid. There's nothing authentic about this, right?
Well, and it's like we talked about. It's that cycle of right now. You're either going to be everything to everyone, so the model that the Marriotts are going after, or you're going to be niche,
right?
And that's where success is going to be. So you're either building on having the big footprint that offers everything to everyone, or you're going to go niche and nail your niche and be successful that way. If you're in between, that's where you're going to struggle, because you're competing with everyone.
Which one of the speakers, Robert, yesterday said the riches is in the niches? It was funny.
No, yeah, that was a good.
Were you watching? You were watching.
You were missed, Holly. You were missed.
I know. I was supposed to be at the Milestone Conference yesterday, but my Southwest flight that was leaving at 6:30 in the morning got canceled.
You could have come late. It's okay.
I was flying out that night. Like, there was no way.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, you did that.
The niche thing too. I think you have to have limited inventory too. I think in order to make it's kind of a catch-22, because you have to be exclusive. I mean, there is, if you look at I follow some like boutique sneaker shops like on Instagram, and they'll release sneakers on a Friday. There'll be hundreds of people lined up on a sidewalk to get these sneakers, and they only have 80 of them. It's about creating something that's going to differentiate yourself, and it's not easy to just go and book a room or get a free room.
No, scarcity.
It has to be, yeah. And I think to the shopping malls, they did not create any differentiation for someone to want to go to that shopping mall. I mean, there's no reason to go in a store when you can order it online. It's like what happened with Blockbuster, which is an easy example. No late fees, wasn't a driver for me to get off the couch and not order Netflix. And I think that's like points-based loyalty. I think we just got to completely change the thought process on what's driving buying behavior.
Well, arrogance is what killed Blockbuster. They had an opportunity to buy Netflix for $50 million. So they're just like, no, we can do this better than them. It's like, Oh no, the classic build versus buy decision. Yeah, I made a little error there. And the last two blockbusters are closing in Alaska. That's the end of it. And let me tell you again, with my age, that used to be my two daughters. That was the big thing. If they had a sleepover, you would go to Blockbuster, and it was mind-numbing because they would be in there for 30, 45 minutes picking out which movies they were going to see. It was like this weird social.
By the way, have you not been on
experience.
Netflix? It's like that on Netflix. It takes about 30, 45 minutes to figure out what the heck you want to watch on it.
Oh yeah, but I mean, you would have groups of kids. Yeah. The dynamics of the groups of kids figuring out what they were going to bring back to what, because it might be like 5 or 6, 8-year-old girls, right? And it just, it was a social thing. That's what they did.
This sort of ties in though to one of the articles that you shared. What happened? Ooh, you went away. What happened to Wayblazer?
Wayblazer died.
Yeah, how come?
They ran out of their explanation.
They ran out of time and money.
Time and money. It's like, yes, with technology, you can do anything with enough time and money. I thought Wayblazer was a very interesting. And Brian, I don't know if I sent these.
That we're talking about.
I don't know if I sent these to Brian.
Here's the challenge. They stepped into a part of the travel world that everyone thinks they can step into, and it's like lays waste to everyone who does, which is fixing discovery. Like that. Maybe I'm tainted because I spent too much time listening to startup pitches constantly, but it feels like everyone wants to fix discovery. But they're not fixing. Here's the thing. In order to fix things in travel, you need to fundamentally accept that there are truths in this industry. And if you ignore the truths in this industry, because it serves your desire to fix discovery, you're just going to fall waste to all the other companies that do this. So I'm willing to guarantee you, although they had a longer stretch and they actually had a pretty legitimate approach,
they did.
The bottom line is they still didn't go at it correctly. So first of all, Brian, you spend a lot of time talking about personalization. Have you spent a lot of time thinking about why personalization isn't happening more in the digital side of hotels?
Yeah, I think it's a lack of access to data.
Actually, unable to access the data you have is definitely one of them. I mean, because the data is there. But let's go even more fundamental. In order to pull off personalization really well, you need to have a ton of content that you actually understand who it's meaningful to. Well, all right. Well, hotels underinvest in content. They just do. And that's been a truth of this industry for a very long time. It's actually one of the things that the OTAs accepted and took into their own hands. In the early days of Expedia and Hotels.com, they would not use a hotel's copy on how to sell the hotel. Their market managers wrote it all and would not allow the hotel to copy it. They would go and take their own videographers.
Yeah, right. Expedia drew their own maps, sent their own videographers to go do it.
So you can't pull off personalization with what exists today. Listen, let's look at the approach we're taking. So we believe in personalization, but you can't get there without the fundamentals. So one of the first things we went after to solve for that is the content problem and the context of understanding who's this content meaningful to. So what did we build? We built an entire platform that is designed around asking travelers what was their favorite memory, how was it meaningful to them, and getting all of this different content from them, and then putting it out to their friends and family to understand who does this matter to build these massive libraries. So that's where, Charming Inns. But you can't just say, you can't skip it. You have to fix it. So, so this is where, this discovery, every entrepreneur who steps into this space, I think, started with an idea of fixing discovery. I really do. But you have to take the time to understand why it's not being done today. And you need to accept that it's not being done today. So you got to fix that before you can fix discovery. And too many companies in this space just completely ignore or just refuse to accept some of the realities. Let me give you another reality that exists in hospitality that you just need to accept as someone building a technology in this space. PMSs are incredibly difficult to connect to. That's a general rule in this industry. So if you build
except Infor.
saying there are exceptions to all rules, right? But the bottom line is if you want to get by and your product is dependent on connecting to PMS, then you need to cross that hurdle before you are going to be commercially viable. And the answer isn't hotels will accept it without, or they'll accept lesser. I mean, you're going to have to build a product that can stand on its own then without that connection, because like that's a reality of life. Here's another one that everyone seems to refuse to accept. Every person inside of a hotel wears so many hats that nothing you're offering to them, no matter how valuable it is, can take up most of their day.
Right.
Full stop.
Well, that's for sure.
Right.
Yep.
But so many companies that are coming in or creating new product for this space completely ignore that fact. And if you ignore enough of these facts, no matter how good of an idea you have, no matter how good of a technologist you are, you will fail because your gap of futurism versus today is just too big.
Right.
And I've seen it so many times. It makes me laugh because I'm young and I've seen it so many times. I've only been in this industry since 2001. And I have seen, like, I could fill books with the lists of companies that just ignored the realities or just didn't educate themselves before getting into solving the problem.
Well,
it's that broken thing in certain entrepreneurs that they just feel like if they're passionate enough about their idea, everyone will just fall in line. And then you get the false positives from the early adopters. Because here's the thing, early adopters, they're all the same hotels in this industry. I can tell you without question that if a new technology comes up, I can tell you what hotels will be the first ones on it, and they give the worst false positives that you can possibly get. Because once you exhaust
everything,
once you exhaust that tiny audience of early adopters in this industry, everyone else is a late adopter. There is no one in between. It's like the desert of despair. Getting past early adopters.
And the classic, the classic is if you go to the Focusrite Travel Innovation Summit. The classic is, and they try to coach these people not to say this on stage because you basically get laughed at. All these entrepreneurs going, hey, my wife and I were on a trip, or we were doing this, and we ran into a problem, and we're gonna fix it. And everybody's just like, oh my God, they've heard it. The interesting one though is more like Wayblazer. Though Wayblazer was founded by Terry Jones, who was the CIO of Sabre, who basically founded Travelocity, and a guy with IBM and Watson. Right? So all of a sudden you go, Terry has a track record. He was chairman of Kayak too, right? He's done this stuff before. People will give him money. And here we've got Watson behind it. And their initial pitch was, this is going to be AI for travel and figure out a wide variety of things. And all of a sudden that gap was too huge, right? They didn't have the content. They didn't have the schema, right, to even organize the data.
Surely they have the schema. You can't have AI without the schema.
Well, no, you can't. But the hotels don't have the schema.
You can apply certain
hotels. How many hotels have Google's new voice schema? None, right? Zero. Maybe, yeah. So yeah, they don't have it, right?
And
so
I think back to Ed's point too, because about the content thing, I think what is drastically different between, so I don't know, 5-6 years ago, the slogan in marketing was content is king, right? Yeah. And now it's all AI, it's all personalization, but it's been such a challenge to interface to core systems in the industry that has become the leading buying reason, is because, that can interface to multiple systems, But then it should be the opposite. How am I going to be able to create content that's not just post-stay, pre-stay, and a survey? How am I going to acquire new guests? How am I going to be able to personalize it? It should be a given that the system can bring in the data on the marketing side. And it's that content piece, they totally missed the boat. I think the ones that are catching up quicker are the ones that are taking both building their own content in a strategic way, and you don't have to do a ton of it, you just got to do it smart. And then the ones that are focused on user-generated, that's free. User-generated content is free, and it's powerful, but you're not there. It's more of a strategic standpoint than it is a technology standpoint, where you just got to start. Marketing should not be a check the box in hospitality.
It's never done.
Yeah,
Right.
it's always just added into an evaluation. Marketing should be the evaluation, right? You got to get people in the door. Who cares if you have it? I mean, it should be the top of mind. How are we going to acquire new guests? And it's starting to come along, but it's still very far behind when it comes to other industries.
And it's because a lot of the companies who have stepped into this vertical have just skipped the process of understanding what reality is today and bridging today to their future. Listen, there are big companies right now that exist in MarTech, in hospitality, that the only reason they still exist is because they've raised so much money and now they're just finally fundamentally answering some of these problems. Like, there's a big CRM in this space that completely ignored the fact that hotels want to do other things besides the personalized communication inside these communications. And if you looked at the attrition that they had, because they did a great job, they used modern sales approach, they used really fancy marketing, they sold all the buzzwords, and most customers would get on and go, great, I also need this, this, and this in my pre-arrival email. Oh, you can't do that inside our personalization template, so we'll have to do a custom HTML email, which drops all the personalization. So we're now nothing more than the same as everyone else. That company is struggling. And if you'll notice, they're not really out making noise, and they haven't been for a year or two, because they basically went customer acquisition, customer loss, because they ignored the fact they just lived on an island. You can't do that. You have to understand your customer in this. Here's a really good pivot for you. TripTease. Do all of you know what TripTease did before their current iteration of what they do? Right. So they did something that was the closest thing I've seen as a competitive offering to what we do at Flip2. But like, the first time I looked at it, I was like, they ignored this, and this. And I've talked to Charlie about it. I'm like, you weren't successful not because it wasn't a good idea. It's because you just didn't know these things. Or
it was a minimum viable product, right? They got
actually, you can't call that. Actually, it was really nicely designed. There were aspects of it that they really did a good job on. They spent a lot of time and effort on it, but they fundamentally ignored some truths that exist. And that could have been an experience. It could have been whatever. But they were around because they pivoted away from it. They were smart enough to cut and run. But that bites most companies in this that are come in new to this space, is a fundamental misunderstanding of the realities of hospitality.
Yeah. When I get into sales cycles, I mean, I think there is gaps in some of always the known industry. And if you're going to be transformational, you need to provide all the tools to build content or have the people that can do it to drive guest acquisition, not just when someone converts or someone books. I'm seeing more of the larger MarTech companies coming into the industry and winning deals than I am worried about winning deals against niche players, because those people have figured it out in other industries and they can do it, and they do enough of it where now they're the option, right? And people aren't getting ahead enough to be the viable option.
Yep. And if they can come in and say we're crushing it in retail, and look at the guys that we've done whatever and empowered that gets the attention of these hoteliers. So that's good. Oh, just going back one thing though, to like Terry and those guys not having Wayblazer really make it. The same thing with Room 77. I mean, you had Rich Barton, who was with Microsoft when they formed Expedia, right? Rich has built Glassdoor, he's built Zillow, he's built all these successful companies. And they did this Room 77 thing. They had Kevin Fleiss, who had been the Travel Muse, smart people. And they're like, hey, we're going to sell hotels, individual room by room and views, and this will be fantastic. And I mean, there were really good reasons to be able to do that and would have had good returns for the hotel. And it was like, it's never going to work. The hotels can't digest that. They don't sell their rooms like they're selling them by categories, not by units. And the big problem is if you do take over, these guys better be really good at playing Tetris, right? Because you don't have anything to be able to stack this stuff up properly and fill the gaps. Right. But they failed. It was basically a talent sale into Google, right? Yep. And the only reason Google bought it was they were doing searches that included AAA and AARP rates, right? and we're basically surfacing those and going, hey, I might be eligible for a couple of other rate types that normally don't bubble up. That's great. Right. Yep. So, but again, those things should have gone, but even smart people knowing the industry, well-funded, everything, still massive gaps, not being able to connect in and be able, the connectivity was a huge issue. The platforms were an issue. Everything was,
and a lot of these, it's because you can tell they all they thought about was what could go well. Right. They didn't, no one sat there and really spent time going, what are all the ways this is going to go wrong? Yeah. Because I'm sorry, you bring something truly new to hospitality, there are way more ways it's going to go wrong than there are ways it's going to go right. And your preparedness for all the different ways it's going to go wrong is what gets you more runway to adjust to the things you didn't think of that could go wrong. Because listen, that's a startup. Every day is a roller coaster. When it's truly a new idea, you go from one phone call to the next feeling like everything we're doing is on fire and it's exploding to everything we're doing is on fire and it's exploding. So
which means it's a Thursday.
Yeah, right. So. It's kind of, I've sold into marketing to a number of different industries, and it's kudos to the hospitality industry, but there's not too many industries like hospitality. People start in hospitality and stay in hospitality, and I think that's part of the issue sometimes too is, I mean, I worked at another large company and I sold marketing. I couldn't even talk to the hospitality. They stayed in their own little pocket and people just know what they know. So it's kind of, even though I was a little nervous at first, it's been nice coming in with a different set of eyes and not being, I liked not knowing a lot of stuff when I came in, because then I could see where the gaps were or where the issues were. And there's a lot, and I don't think it's that difficult. I think it's, people are starting to figure it out, but I do think that people need to start thinking outside a little bit, outside of their comfort zone and taking those risks, because that's how you're going to get ahead. That's how you're going to differentiate. Like I hear, what do you guys think of like the normal loyalty program? Like I would say that they have the arrogance of Blockbuster. Like that's how I think of loyalty, points-based loyalty.
It's not loyalty. It's a rewards program and it's gamification. It has nothing to do with loyalty. They're buying. It's a transactional relationship with these guests, mostly.
Like the airlines, early boarding. Yeah. I'm like more figuring out how do I stay. When's the last time I ordered my last beer at the bar, and what's the last possible moment I can get on this plane. And they're rewarding me with early boarding. I mean, it's just, they're not drivers to bring people in the door. And that's the most glaring thing, is that those loyalty programs still exist. Yeah, they're not a driver.
Yeah. Well, and the airlines,
their reward schemas, their Pavlov's dog is all they are. Can I reward you for enough of the right behavior to try and get at least one or two examples of you doing that behavior without me rewarding you?
But it's the behavior.
It's not loyalty.
The vast majority of those points, and you got to look at the airline programs, and the hotels followed them. Is converting corporate travel spend, somebody else's money to personal leisure benefit. That's all it is, right?
And here's the other thing
they'll go play that. They'll play that game.
I wish hotels would stop following airlines. Airlines are nothing more than buses that can fly. Okay, the airlines dumped experience.
They turned themselves into that.
Right, they chose it.
So, yeah, they chose that path. Yeah.
The hotel industry should not continue looking at the airline business model as inspiration of what to do, because here's the thing. The choice of airline is because you have a limited choice of how to get places, and most of your choices are going to be made on what's the least painful version of this.
Control of nonstop origins and destinations. That is the
it's a monopoly
airline industry.
Based industry. Hotels, like if people really wanted to buy hotels the way they do airlines, then every hotel would be the same. We wouldn't have lavish lobbies. We wouldn't have all that stuff, because that stuff adds no value. If all you care about is I need to stay in this neighborhood. Yeah, right. It's shelter. So hotels need to understand that airlines are playing a different human need, and they did the right things to control the ability to not get disrupted easily by someone who wants to actually appeal to the higher revenue side of the human condition. The bottom line is hotels are not airplanes, period. Right. And so you shouldn't be looking to, it drives me nuts. A lot of the revenue management systems of old were all based off of algorithms that came from the airline industry.
Absolutely. Well, they were the first dynamic. They were the first true dynamic pricing.
The GDS is an airline system that got adjusted to, also take hotels.
Wait, I'll make one point. Brian might appreciate this. The hotel information in Sabre, now it's a little bit different, but when I joined Sabre in 1996, I had all sorts of interesting questions of why they couldn't do anything. And the answer was, well, that won't fit in the BAS. I'm like, what's the BAS? And they go, well, that's where all the data is stored. I go, well, why do they call it the BAS? They go, oh, it's the basic air segment. It's like, now I understand. And that's it. I mean, and basically Sabre's hotel platform in the GDS was acquired from Apollo, from United Airlines. They bought a license in 1984. And that's, you go, wow, that's not very innovative or anything like that. And that was the core. And in 1998, we were generating half of the world's automated hotel transactions. It was insanity.
Yeah.
That is. And to Ed's point and to your point as well, the airlines, I mean, there's not a concern of the share economy or, if Magellan or NetJets, or if they ever figure out how to get those flights lower and it's a better experience, then there's issues, but the airline industry is such a stronghold.
You have to solve for physics. You have to solve for that pesky thing called physics that keeps air travel kind of expensive.
Well, no, but here's what happens, and here's how the airlines behave, and they're almost never caught on it. So there was a group, I think was it Texas Air? I can't remember the name of it. It was great. They started up at Dallas Love Field. They wound up because they could not get gates, because Delta had 10 gates tied up and American had so many gates, which they weren't using, but they were just purely tying them up so Southwest couldn't get more gates and nobody else could get in there. These guys go and build a terminal across the other side of the field. And they had a rule at that time, the Wright Amendment, which was a federal law from this guy, Jim Wright, who was the Speaker of the House, which made the relocation of American to Dallas, or actually technically to Fort Worth, and the creation of DFW Airport a thing, right? So this is all structured. Southwest could only fly to neighboring states, right? They could not go anywhere else, or you had to actually change planes. You couldn't have through ticketing, nothing. But they had a limit. It was the plane had to be over 58 seats. If it was under 58 seats, you could do it. So these guys did reconfigured, I can't remember if it was 757s or something, with 57 seats. And it was all first class, nonstop from Dallas Love Field, which is a hell of a lot better location, located right next to very high-end residential districts, all the old money in the city. And they started flying to Washington, Chicago, Los Angeles, and it was great. And it was the same cost as full Y fare coach, right? This was amazing. What did American do? They started offering the same fares. They dumped a bunch of seats. All of a sudden, they tripled their nonstops going to these places. They put planes flying in the same place, and then gave people triple advantage miles and watched them bleed out. Right? They're just like, we've got deeper pockets than you. This is going to be really, really ugly, and it's anti-competitive, and it's bad for the consumer. And American has a very strong political action committee that just made sure that nobody popped up on the floor of the House or Senate and said, hey, that looks underhand. Northwest did the same thing to guys who would pop up in a thing. They would put 10x the number
quickly, Robert, because I do have to run at 1. So, Brian, thank you for coming on. I'll reach out to you. I'd love to talk more about what you're doing. And Holly, your dog is amazing. It's like, it's awesome. This is where you should always be set up. So anyways, if you want to find out about me, flip.to, or you can find me on social media, Edward St. Onge. You guys have a great weekend. And Brian, I look forward to talking to you some more.
Yeah, definitely. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you. Thanks.
Holly, your dogs are quiet too. I get my wife like band in this thunder and lightning in Charleston right now, and we just rescued a dog, and he is so nervous of thunder and lightning that I can kind of hear them in the background. But I told my wife she needed to barricade them in the kitchen. The kitchen's big though.
The poor dog's freaking out with the thunder and lightning, and now trying to figure out why he's in the kitchen.
Yeah. So the one thing about airlines, when I think about it, I will book an airline for the terminal. Like I used to. It's not even there anymore. I was mad. But in Washington, they had an awesome Mediterranean restaurant, the Lebanese Taverna, where I would stop in Reagan on purpose to go to that restaurant. It's JetBlue's terminal. I mean, other than that, I would never.
That is hilarious.
Reason. Yeah, I mean, you're going to be there. You might as well be around good restaurants or good areas.
I totally agree, but I don't think I ever booked a ticket based on that.
Well, but I won't fly Spirit. I won't fly Spirit, and I won't fly Frontier anymore. I don't care if they have a flight that's cheaper, going to the point. I don't like their business model. I don't like their approach to consumer hostility, and the experience sucks, and I'm not going to expose myself to it. I will pay more to go fly on almost anybody.
Well, if you have the option, I don't know if the last time you flew into to New York, but if you fly JetBlue and you have the option, both airports are terrible to get down to the city. Though I used to always go to LaGuardia because it was a little easier, but now I'll go to JFK because the new terminal for LaGuardia for JetBlue is terrible. There's only a small little restaurant, so now I will purposely go to JFK, knowing it's a worse experience, but at least there's options there while I wait.
Yeah. Or Newark.
That's hilarious.
Get in easy from Newark too.
Newark's not bad.
Yeah. It depends. Well, it depends. If I got to go downtown, I'll go to Newark. If I got to go, Upper East Side, Midtown, I go to LaGuardia, and So.
They are all awful in New York.
Oh.
They are.
And that's the gateway for so many foreign visitors to our country.
Let me tell you though, LaGuardia has been under construction since I lived in the city in the mid 80s. It's just always been a disaster. Yeah. But anyway, I don't know what else you want to talk. I don't think Brian saw. I should have been more aware of it, but I was on a red eye last night throwing it together. I always throw together these different news articles. But Holly, it sounds like you spotted a couple because you saw the rut row with the Wayblazer going away. Any others that caught your eye?
I read that one first every week.
Well, we're supposed to close with it, but that's okay. So.
I know, sorry, but I read that one first whenever you send it out because it's always like, oh, I can't believe that happened. Poor Radisson, not knowing the future.
Yeah, Radisson. Brian, here, I'll post the thing in the notes here. Radisson was acquired by HNA, and HNA is divesting of pretty much all their hotel assets, and they had bought really quite a few, so they don't really know what's going to happen to their future, and it's quite the sad thing. And for some reason, I'm having trouble posting this.
Where are you posting it? On Facebook or on?
I was doing. I'm putting it here so Brian can see it in the comments.
And, I thought Facebook was done now.
Actually, it's very. Facebook is quite interesting. They lost $100 billion this week, but I think. But they're and Zuckerberg dropped 2 spots in the richest person in the world tally because of it. So that's a bad week. But I think if you're still on that list, it's not that bad. But again, hey, Facebook owns Instagram, right? So
and WhatsApp too.
And WhatsApp. Yep.
Huge. Yeah. But it was. I mean, I guess I knew how big Facebook was, but to lose 115 billion and still be okay, I'm like, oh my god. I'm reading this now.
Yeah, they're amazing. I mean, they are a force to be reckoned with. And again, I have a daughter who's 27. She just went on her honeymoon. She didn't post during the honeymoon. I think she had maybe she did a Facebook post. I don't know. Everything was Instagram stories. Basically 100% Instagram stories. She went to 4 different places in Greece. Each one got an Instagram photo, right, sort of thing. But when she came back, she did her photo albums all on Facebook. So yeah, interesting how it's being used.
It goes to the whole supply and demand thing, right? With it's only up there for 12 seconds or for however long, for 24 hours. So you think you're going to drive more people to watch that story, and then it's that gratification thing, and they're creating a limited supply or a temporary supply, so people are going to engage with it. But I think Facebook too, and I'm on Instagram and the rest, but I'm not on Facebook anymore because it became too much, right? It wasn't that frictionless experience where I just want to scroll through pitches or see what people are doing. It was just everything was everywhere. And I think it got too big rather than
the algorithm got messy and people. Yeah, it's an ugly challenge. Yep. And but again, I'm still on. I don't necessarily post as much. I used to be all over Twitter. I think Twitter fatigue certainly hits a lot of people, and Twitter's turned pretty ugly for just people kind of ranting and trolling other people and stuff like that. Well. But again, I go back to early days of Twitter. It did some really amazing things. I don't know if you know Tim Hughes. He runs Agoda out of Thailand. He's an Aussie though, but I think his wife's sister was in the Mumbai attacks, the hotel attacks. They figured out where she was through Twitter, and people communicating what's going on the ground way before the anything happened on the news or through governmental authorities or anything like. Same thing with the Boston Marathon
bombing. I was just going to say that. And I'm from Boston. We were all quarantined during that whole thing. We couldn't leave our house, and it was. But we were listening when I don't know if you've seen the movie, but when they found them in Watertown, like we were on Twitter, or we could listen to police scanners like on Twitter. We were hearing like the bombs, like, oh, they just threw something out, and I'm like, oh my god, and I'm waking up my wife because it was pretty late. She's like, why? And I'm like, you got to hit. They're going. It was insane. You get your news so fast there, faster than any other platform. That's what it's good for.
If you knew who to follow, and you need somebody to curate it. So in the case of the Boston Marathon bombing, I can't remember who posted a list. They go, this is it. And it was like the beat reporters, right? Who had all the contacts in the police department, who worked for the Boston Globe or whoever. And those guys were unbelievable because they were just like, nope, this is going here. This is weird. We're following up on. And it was this stream of 45 minutes before, you know, a CBS or a CNN or anybody was, you know, they'd be up there talking about it. I'm like, nope, that's old news. That's not happening anymore. Oh, yeah. So it's revolutionized, the news industry in terms of reporting what's going on in real time. Amazing tool, but again, it got, you can use technology for good, you can use it for bad, and it's like democracy. It gets messy, right? So
I think Twitter's good for access to news, but where Twitter that's only what it can be good at. I don't think it has a good model to monetize ads or to put stuff on there for shopping or anything like that. But it's really good for getting news. Unfortunately, that might not be the best way to make money, and that's maybe not the Facebook or the Instagrams of the world, but that's what they're good at.
Yeah. And Instagram, I'm giving a talk at the Hotel Data Conference on influencer marketing and doing some things with predominantly Instagram, and then some stuff that Ed's given me from Flip2 for more the advocacy side. But it's very interesting. But even on that, hotel brands, there was a stat, actually, that reminds me, I have to dig out the source of that stat, that 83% of hotels are involved in influencer marketing, which really, or maybe they said hotel brands, not individual properties. 83% of the brands are involved in it, and nobody knows what they're doing. And
but I was going to say, I wonder what that means, because does that mean they let bloggers stay at their hotels for free?
I think they're trying to nurture something, right, with that, and they don't know what they're doing, because they have crummy analytics on it. They don't know who these guys. They try to figure out who these guys are, but they have no idea who their followers are. They don't know the engagement rates of just their followers versus their general.
With the whole influencer thing to even, and I think there is an option there, like for those bloggers to be able to, I don't know, monetize, or kind of like you talked about the Reddit, where you vote up. The more you get voted up, the more
followers of they're looking at really what's going on with the follower, how those followers are engaging with them, and who those followers are.
Yeah, BuzzFeed has, retweet and sharing. It's, to me, the easiest tool out there, but I forgot you were this guy. I too have to go. I'm so sorry. I'm abandoning you, although we have been on for an hour and a half, so I don't ever feel too guilty.
We have. Because the only other one I wanted to talk about was Expedia a little bit.
Yeah.
Which had some pretty Expedia and direct bookings being flat.
Well, see, gosh, save that for next week, because I want to talk about
there is no saving.
I know. I gotta go. I gotta go.
Another list. Okay.
Brian, thank you for coming on this show. Robert, bye.
Bye, Holly. Take care. Have a great.